You did not come across this message by chance. Something inside you paused here for a reason, because deep down you already sense that a powerful emotional shift has taken place. Someone is thinking about you constantly right now, and the reason goes far beyond attraction or temporary emotion. It began the moment you changed your energy. Welcome to Jungian Shadow. If these messages speak to something deep within you, stay close, because every reflection here is designed to uncover the hidden emotional patterns behind love, silence, attachment, and human connection. Now listen carefully, because this situation is more important than it first appears. There was a moment when you finally stopped abandoning yourself for someone else's comfort. From the outside, it may not have looked dramatic. You didn't create chaos. You didn't beg for answers. You didn't send endless emotional messages trying to force clarity from someone who continuously gave confusion. Instead, something much quieter happened. You became still. You stopped chasing. You stopped over-explaining your feelings to someone committed to misunderstanding them. You stopped exhausting yourself trying to earn consistency from someone who benefited from your unconditional effort. And the moment your energy pulled back, something inside them shifted immediately. Here is the truth they never expected to face. They genuinely believed you would always remain emotionally available to them. They believed your patience had no limit. They assumed your care would always be there quietly in the background, no matter how distant, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable they became. That assumption became their comfort zone. And when people become too comfortable with your presence, they stop protecting it carefully. They delay effort. They postpone emotional accountability. They convince themselves they can always fix things later because they secretly believe you will never truly leave. But then your energy changed. You stopped trying to prove your worth to someone who kept questioning it. You stopped shrinking yourself just to preserve a connection that was draining you emotionally. And suddenly, your silence spoke louder than every emotional conversation you ever tried to have. That is when the obsession began, because people rarely panic when they feel secure in controlling your love. They panic when they realize they may have already lost access to it. Now, whether they admit it openly or not, they replay everything constantly. They think about your patience, your loyalty, your emotional consistency. They remember the way your presence made them feel safe without demanding performance. They remember how deeply understood they felt around you. And the hardest realization for them is this: they only fully recognized your value after your energy stopped reaching toward them. Now they feel the absence everywhere. Even if they appear calm on the surface, even if they distract themselves with work, routines, social media, or attention from other people, your absence follows them quietly, because what they lost was never just another relationship. They lost someone who truly saw them beneath their emotional mask. And when someone loses the person who genuinely understands them, they do not only miss the relationship, they miss the version of themselves that existed inside that connection. This is something Carl Jung understood deeply. He believed relationships often awaken hidden parts of the unconscious mind. When someone feels emotionally safe enough to be truly seen, buried emotions begin rising to the surface. You became that mirror for them. You saw beyond their image, beyond their defenses, beyond the identity they showed the world. And when you stepped away, those hidden parts no longer had your presence to stabilize them. That is why your silence affected them so deeply. You did not become cruel. You did not seek revenge. You simply returned to yourself. And self-respect carries an energy people feel immediately, even in silence. It communicates something powerful without saying a single word. I know my value, even if you fail to recognize it. That realization destabilizes people far more than anger ever could. Now they are questioning themselves during quiet moments, late at night, during ordinary routines, in the silence between distractions. They wonder why they assumed you would always stay. They wonder why they delayed choosing you clearly. They wonder if they waited too long. And this conflict follows them everywhere. They revisit old conversations. They replay memories differently now. They may type your name into their phone, start messages they never send, or sit with emotions they spent years avoiding, because reaching out now would require them to confront a difficult truth. You were genuine, and they were emotionally unprepared for something genuine. Carl Jung once said that unconscious patterns control our lives until we become aware of them. Your absence forced awareness. The emotional truths they kept escaping now have nowhere left to hide. But this next part matters deeply. Just because someone is overwhelmed by thoughts of you does not automatically mean they are emotionally ready to love you correctly. Missing your energy is not the same as emotional growth. Many people miss the comfort, validation, and emotional safety you gave them without truly understanding what it takes to maintain a healthy connection. That is why your distance matters right now. This silence is accomplishing what your explanations never could. It is forcing reflection. For the first time, they are sitting with the emotional consequences of their inconsistency. And that process is uncomfortable because they are beginning to see something clearly. You were never difficult to love. You simply required honesty, consistency, and emotional presence. And emotional honesty terrifies people who spent years hiding from themselves. That fear created the distance, not your worth, not your depth, and not your ability to love. But this moment is not only about them. It is about you reclaiming yourself emotionally. You are no longer chasing reassurance. You are no longer collapsing under uncertainty or trying to decode mixed signals. You are learning something powerful now. Real love should not leave you in constant confusion. Real love brings steadiness. Real love brings clarity. Real love does not require you to abandon yourself just to keep it alive. And the version of you emerging from this silence understands that now you are becoming stronger without becoming cold, wiser without becoming bitter, more emotionally grounded without losing your softness. That transformation matters more than you realize. Because whether they return or not, one thing inside you has permanently changed. You will never again reduce yourself just to fit inside a connection that survives only through your effort alone, and they can feel that shift. That is why your energy unsettles them now. They sense you pulling your focus back toward your own life. They feel you slowly detaching from the desperate waiting they once depended on. And nothing shakes people more deeply than realizing the person they assumed would always stay is finally learning how to live fully without them. Now the silence feels different to them. At first, they believed distance would weaken the connection. They assumed time apart would slowly erase the emotional intensity between you, but the opposite happened. Your absence sharpened everything. Because when someone loses access to a person who genuinely mattered, the mind begins replaying every detail differently. Conversations once ignored suddenly become meaningful. Small moments now carry emotional weight. Memories return unexpectedly, and with them comes regret. Not loud regret, quiet regret. The kind that grows heavier during private moments when distractions stop working. Now they are beginning to understand something painful. You did not leave because you stopped caring. You stepped away because carrying the connection alone became emotionally exhausting. You grew tired of proving your worth, tired of decoding inconsistency, tired of trying to hold together something that required two emotionally present people while only one consistently showed up. And once you stopped forcing the connection to survive, reality became impossible for them to avoid. Now they are finally seeing the emotional imbalance clearly, and perhaps the hardest truth for them is this: the right person does not wait until silence teaches them the value of your presence. The right person chooses you clearly while they still have access to your heart. They constantly wonder whether you still think about them. They wonder if someone else is now giving you the emotional stability and consistency they failed to offer when they had the chance. These thoughts follow them quietly throughout their days, not always in obvious ways, but beneath everything they do. Beneath routines, distractions, conversations, and carefully controlled appearances, your absence still lingers. Because unresolved emotional attachment rarely disappears completely. It stays hidden beneath the surface, returning in quiet moments when the mind slows down and distractions lose their power. And what makes this even harder for them is that they cannot fully return to the person they were before you entered their life. Once someone experiences being deeply understood on an emotional level, ordinary connections often begin to feel incomplete by comparison. That is why they keep returning to thoughts of you, even when they try not to. Emotional significance leaves lasting impressions on the psyche. Certain people change us permanently, not because we planned for it, but because they touch parts of us that were never reached before. Carl Jung often spoke about how the unconscious mind repeatedly brings people back toward unresolved emotional experiences until they are finally understood. That is exactly what is happening now. Your connection became unfinished emotional territory inside them, and unfinished emotions have a way of resurfacing again and again until they are faced honestly. Now listen carefully, because this next part matters deeply. You may feel their energy returning toward you emotionally. There may be moments when thoughts of them suddenly become intense again after long periods of calm. Certain memories may rise unexpectedly. Emotional waves may appear without warning. That does not necessarily mean something mystical is controlling your life. It simply means deep emotional bonds leave lasting psychological imprints. The human mind naturally revisits unresolved emotional experiences, especially when silence replaced clarity, when important feelings remained unspoken, and when two people cared deeply for each other but lacked the emotional maturity to navigate the connection properly at the time. But while they are being pushed towards self-reflection, your journey is unfolding differently. You are learning how to exist without constantly seeking reassurance from someone else. You are learning how to separate your worth from another person's inconsistency. You are finally understanding that love should never require self-abandonment. And once someone truly understands their emotional value, they change permanently. They stop begging to be chosen. They stop shrinking themselves to maintain unstable connections. They stop confusing emotional intensity with emotional security. That is exactly why your energy feels different now. You are no longer moving from desperation. You are moving from clarity. And clarity unsettles people who once depended on your constant emotional availability. They can feel you reclaiming yourself emotionally, and that realization creates anxiety they cannot easily explain, not dramatic panic. Quiet panic? The kind hidden beneath delayed messages, restless thinking, emotional confusion, and sleepless nights. Now they are forced to confront questions they spent a long time avoiding. Did they take your love for granted? Did fear prevent them from choosing you fully? Did they lose something genuine because they waited too long? Those questions are becoming impossible for them to silence. But this next truth is the most important of all. Their emotional awakening does not require you to stop living your life. Your role is not to pause your healing while they figure themselves out. Your role is not to remain emotionally suspended, waiting for someone else to become ready. Your responsibility now is protecting the emotional growth you fought hard to build inside yourself. That means continuing to choose peace over confusion, clarity over mixed signals, self-respect over emotional survival mode. Because if someone truly wants to return meaningfully, they cannot return only overwhelmed by emotion. They must return transformed by accountability. There is a difference. A person can miss you deeply and still repeat the same unhealthy patterns that hurt you before. That is why your boundaries matter now more than ever. Boundaries are not punishment. They are evidence that you finally recognize your own emotional value. And whether this person returns or not, that realization is already reshaping your future. You are no longer the version of yourself who believed love required endless sacrifice without reciprocity. You are becoming someone who understands something much deeper now. Real love should not leave you in constant anxiety. Real love should not keep you emotionally exhausted. Real love does not force you to decode confusion in order to feel chosen. Real love chooses you clearly, And if this message resonates deeply within you, understand this: the transformation happening inside you is far more important than the relationship itself. Because for the first time, you are no longer performing love from fear of abandonment. You are learning to approach love from self-awareness instead. And beneath the surface, something else is happening now, something even they are struggling to fully understand within themselves. The more time they spend reflecting on your absence, the more they begin to understand that this was never just about losing a relationship. What truly unsettles them is realizing they also lost the version of themselves that existed when they were close to you. That realization carries a weight they did not expect. Sometimes people believe they only miss another person, when in reality they also miss who they became inside that connection. Around you, they felt emotionally understood. They felt safe enough to lower their guard in ways they rarely admitted openly. Your presence allowed parts of them to surface that normally remained hidden beneath emotional distance, logic, distraction, or control. Carl Jung believed certain relationships awaken dormant aspects of identity. Some people enter our lives and unconsciously reveal emotional truths we never fully recognized within ourselves. You became that emotional mirror for them. Through you, they encountered softer parts of themselves, the hopeful parts, the vulnerable parts, the deeply human parts they spent years trying to protect from exposure. And now those parts are fully awake. That is why moving on has become far more difficult for them than they expected, because your absence did not erase the emotional awakening, it intensified it. Now they compare everything unconsciously. New conversations feel emotionally shallow by comparison. Temporary distractions lose their effect quickly. Even attention from other people feels incomplete because emotional depth leaves an imprint that superficial experiences cannot easily replace. This is where the internal conflict inside them becomes exhausting. Part of them wants to move toward you honestly. Another part still fears vulnerability. One side longs for emotional closeness, while the other clings to emotional control. Those opposing forces are colliding constantly within them now. Some days, they feel certain they should reach out. Other days, fear convinces them to remain silent. At times, they replay memories with warmth and longing. Other times, they retreat emotionally because distance feels safer than exposure. This push and pull dynamic is not always manipulation. Sometimes it is what happens when someone feels something deeply but lacks the emotional clarity or maturity to navigate the intensity of it properly. The more meaningful the connection becomes, the more terrifying vulnerability can feel to someone emotionally unprepared for genuine intimacy. That is why your silence changed everything. Silence removed their ability to remain emotionally half-invested while still benefiting from your presence. Now they are being forced to confront a choice internally: continue avoiding what they truly feel, or finally face it honestly. And that confrontation changes people, especially when they realize something painful. You did not walk away because you stopped loving them. You stepped back because you finally loved yourself enough to stop accepting emotional inconsistency. That truth follows them constantly now. They replay moments where you tried to communicate openly while they withdrew emotionally. They remember times your needs were obvious, yet they delayed responding. They remember moments where pride stood where honesty should have stood. And slowly, those memories are becoming heavier, not because you tried to make them feel guilty, but because self-awareness naturally creates accountability. Carl Jung often spoke about the suffering that occurs when a person's actions become disconnected from their deeper emotional truth. That is exactly what is happening within them now. What they feel and how they behave no longer align comfortably, and that emotional mismatch creates psychological tension that keeps building over time. Now they are beginning to understand something difficult. Avoiding vulnerability never truly protected them emotionally. It only delayed emotional truth. And delayed emotional truth eventually becomes impossible to ignore. That is why they feel restless now, why your silence feels louder than your words ever did, why their thoughts repeatedly return towards you even when they try focusing elsewhere. Because unresolved emotional truth continues resurfacing until it is finally acknowledged honestly. But listen carefully, because this next part matters deeply. Their emotional struggle is no longer your responsibility to carry. You are no longer required to rescue someone from lessons they avoided while you exhausted yourself trying to hold the connection together alone. That version of your life is ending, and something healthier is beginning inside you now. You are learning to stop confusing emotional suffering with emotional depth. You are learning that uncertainty is not proof of love. You are learning that real connection should never leave you constantly questioning your value. That understanding changes everything, because even if they return someday, they will not meet the same version of you who once tolerated imbalance simply out of fear of losing them. You are becoming steadier, more emotionally grounded, more aware of what healthy love actually requires, and that transformation is permanent. Now they feel your energy shifting too. They sense that you are no longer emotionally available in the same desperate way. They feel you slowly releasing the need to force an outcome or hold onto the connection at any cost. And strangely, that emotional independence pulls them toward you even more strongly. Because people often begin fully valuing emotional safety only after realizing it is no longer guaranteed. And that realization creates urgency they can no longer ignore. But urgency by itself changes nothing. This part matters deeply, so listen carefully. If they ever return in a meaningful way, it cannot come only from the fear of losing you. Fear may create temporary effort, but only real emotional growth creates lasting change. There is a major difference between someone missing your presence and someone becoming emotionally mature enough to truly protect your heart. And that difference matters more than longing itself, because love without growth eventually repeats the same painful patterns. That is why your silence has become so powerful, not as punishment, not as manipulation, but because distance created the one thing they could no longer escape: truth. For the first time, they are being forced to sit with themselves honestly. And while they are confronting their inner world, something equally important is happening inside you. You are rebuilding yourself. You are learning how to live without constantly chasing emotional reassurance. You are reconnecting with the version of yourself that existed before confusion consumed your peace. Slowly, you are becoming emotionally whole again. That is the real transformation here. Not whether they miss you, not whether they regret losing you, but whether you finally stop abandoning yourself emotionally for people unwilling to meet you with the same depth you offered them. Once you truly understand your value, your entire relationship with love changes forever. You stop mistaking emotional chaos for passion. You stop romanticizing inconsistency. You stop believing that suffering is proof of connection. And whether you fully realize it yet or not, you are already stepping into that transformation now. Meanwhile, something inside them is shifting too. The silence no longer feels safe to them the way it once did. What they once used as emotional protection now feels like emotional loss. And that realization is changing everything happening inside their mind. For a long time, they believed emotional distance gave them control. They convinced themselves that avoiding vulnerability protected them from pain. They believed if they stayed guarded long enough, they could avoid facing what they truly felt. But emotional truth does not disappear simply because someone delays confronting it. Carl Jung believed the unconscious mind repeatedly pushes unresolved emotional truths back into awareness until they are finally acknowledged honestly. That is exactly what is happening to them now. The more they tried to suppress their feelings, the stronger those feelings quietly became beneath the surface. Because repression does not remove emotional truth, it intensifies it over time. Now memories return more vividly than before. Not only the dramatic moments, but the smallest ones. Your voice, your patience, the emotional warmth you brought into ordinary conversations, the sense of peace they felt around you before fear complicated everything. And now they are beginning to understand something painful. You were never asking for too much, you were asking for honesty, consistency, presence, emotional clarity. Deep down, they know they struggled to give those things fully. And that awareness creates enormous emotional pressure because now they are finally seeing their own patterns clearly, the avoidance, the hesitation, the fear disguised as independence, the tendency to retreat when emotional intimacy became real. Once someone truly sees their own emotional patterns honestly, life becomes impossible to experience in the same unconscious way again. Now silence feels intentional to them. Now emotional distance feels like a choice instead of an accident. And this realization is forcing them into an uncomfortable crossroads: continue hiding behind emotional control and lose something meaningful, or finally risk vulnerability and face the truth. That choice terrifies them more than they expected, because vulnerability feels dangerous to people who survived by controlling their emotions instead of expressing them. But here is the deeper truth. Your connection awakened emotional needs they spent years trying to ignore: the need to feel understood, the need to feel emotionally safe, the need for genuine connection instead of constantly performing emotional strength. You awakened those parts simply by loving them sincerely, and now they cannot unknow what they felt with you. That is why your absence feels so heavy, because your silence forced them into direct contact with emotions they once escaped through distraction, work, routines, and emotional distance. But distractions are no longer working the way they used to. Nothing fully replaces emotional depth once it reaches a certain level. But listen carefully, because this next part matters deeply. Their emotional struggle is no longer your responsibility to carry. It is not your job to abandon your peace simply because they finally recognize your value. It is not your responsibility to reopen emotional wounds just because they are beginning to confront truths they once avoided. Your healing matters too. Your emotional stability matters too. And during this silence, you confronted something important inside yourself as well: your tendency to overgive, your habit of carrying relationships through effort alone, your willingness to stay loyal even after emotional reciprocity disappeared. That awareness changed you permanently. Now you understand something powerful. Love should not require emotional self-abandonment. Love should not leave you constantly anxious about where you stand. Love should not force you to prove your value repeatedly to someone emotionally unavailable. That realization is creating emotional freedom inside you, and emotional freedom changes everything. You no longer feel consumed by the need for constant answers. You no longer feel trapped inside uncertainty the way you once did. You are beginning to separate your worth from another person's ability to choose you clearly. That is real transformation. Carl Jung often spoke about individuation, the process of becoming fully yourself emotionally and psychologically, instead of depending on external validation for identity. That process is unfolding inside you now, and strangely, the more emotionally grounded you become, the more intensely they feel your absence. Because people notice when your energy stops revolving around them. They feel when you stop waiting in the same desperate way. And nothing creates emotional urgency faster than realizing the person who once centered their emotional world around you is finally learning how to live fully without them. Now they fear something they never feared before: not losing control, losing you permanently. That fear is forcing them to reevaluate everything. They replay old moments differently now. They question choices they once justified easily. They wonder whether pride cost them something irreplaceable. And those questions grow louder every day. But this final truth matters most of all. Whether they return or not, you are already becoming stronger than the version of yourself who first entered this connection. You are learning how to love without disappearing inside another person. You are learning how to stay open-hearted without sacrificing your emotional center. You are learning that your value does not decrease simply because someone else lacked the readiness to meet you fully. That lesson changes your future forever. Because once someone truly understands their emotional worth, they stop settling for relationships built on confusion, inconsistency, and emotional half-presence. That lesson changes your future forever. Because once someone truly understands their emotional worth, they stop settling for relationships built on confusion, inconsistency, and emotional half-presence. And now you are standing directly at that threshold. The old version of you would have chased clarity endlessly. The new version understands something different. What is real eventually reveals itself clearly, and what cannot meet you honestly was never meant to hold your future permanently. That understanding creates peace. Not instant peace, real peace, the kind built slowly through self-respect, emotional clarity, and inner stability. And whether this person eventually finds the courage to speak their truth or remains trapped inside their own fear, your future is no longer dependent on their decision alone. You are reclaiming yourself. That is the deeper story unfolding beneath all this silence. Now, everything is becoming clear, not suddenly, but quietly and undeniably. The person thinking about you right now is no longer struggling with a temporary feeling. They are confronting the full reality of what your absence revealed inside them. And that reality changed the way they understand love itself. Because your silence forced them to experience something they spent years avoiding. Truth, not the version shaped by ego. Not the version protected by excuses. The real truth. The truth that says they lost someone who genuinely cared for them. Someone who offered emotional safety while they stayed guarded. Someone who loved honestly while they feared emotional exposure. And now that realization lives inside them permanently. Carl Jung believed that once the unconscious mind recognizes a truth fully, the personality begins reorganizing itself around that awareness. That is why they feel restless now. They can no longer comfortably return to the version of themselves that existed before this connection changed them. You changed something fundamental inside them, not through manipulation, not through emotional games, but because your love carried a level of emotional honesty they were not prepared to receive fully at the time, and now they finally understand that. Now your silence no longer looks like rejection to them. It looks like dignity. It looks like self-respect. And that realization humbles them deeply because they know you did not walk away to punish them. You walked away because staying was slowly hurting you. That truth carries enormous emotional weight, especially for someone who assumed you would continue tolerating inconsistency forever. Now they are being forced to decide who they want to become, not only for you, but for themselves, because your absence became a mirror. And mirrors are uncomfortable when someone has spent years avoiding accountability. But remember this above everything else, their awakening does not require you to pause your own life. Your responsibility now is protecting the peace you fought so hard to rebuild within yourself. Because during this silence you transformed too. You became stronger, not colder, wiser, not bitter. You learned how to survive uncertainty without collapsing emotionally. You learned how to stop measuring your worth through another person's inconsistency. You learned how to choose yourself without guilt. That transformation is sacred. Do not abandon it now simply because someone finally recognizes your value after your absence. Force them to. Because the deepest lesson here was never only about whether they would return, it was about whether you would finally return to yourself, and you did. That is why your energy feels different now. Calmer, steadier, more emotionally grounded. You are no longer begging life for clarity. You are no longer trying to force someone to see your worth. You understand something now that changes everything. Real love meets you halfway willingly. Real love does not demand emotional exhaustion. Real love does not require you to sacrifice your peace just to keep another person comfortable. That understanding is your true power now. And whether this person eventually returns transformed or remains only part of your emotional history, one truth remains undeniable. You remembered your worth. You chose yourself. You stopped abandoning your own heart, trying to save someone unwilling to meet you fully. That is not weakness. That is awakening. That is healing. That is growth. And maybe that was the true purpose of this silence all along.